Hello again. I'm here with three more book reviews. This time I have The Ascent by Ronald Malfi, Bone White by Ronald Malfi, and of course another Bentley Little book called The Ignored. So let's get to the intro and then I can go right into the books. And I am back. So, today I'm going to start with The Ignored, my next book in the quest to finish all of the Bentley Little novels. So let me read what this says. Bob Jones is ordinary, from his appearance right down to his very name. No one seems to take notice of him, not his coworkers, his girlfriend, or even his own parents. But Bob learns he's not alone when he's taken in by a band of people that suffer similarly, calling themselves the Ignored. The deadly vengeance they intend to wreak is sure to make them more than just memorable. I don't like this intro because it doesn't tell you really about the full breadth of this book. That part of the book that they covered there is probably maybe the first third, or at least the first beat, I guess, of a story. Is there's basically one character who Bob meets, who is kind of the leader of this terrorist organization. Basically, it's a terrorist organization of ignored people. We find out there's a bunch of people in this world who are ignored. Nobody can remember who they are. Nobody can actually deal with these people as far as like whatever they do just slowly slips by, and people forget. They forget who they are. They forget, even if their parents will forget them. They just slowly become ignored. That's what Bob is. He was married. He has a problem with his girlfriend. I don't know if he's married. If his wife is girlfriend. Yeah, I guess his girlfriend. Doesn't really work out because they have a falling out. So he winds up being alone. There's something that these all ignored people have to do to actually totally become ignored. And the problem I have with this Bentley Little book, I'll be honest with you, to make a cliche here, I would say that this Bentley Little book you should ignore. I think this is even more than University. I mean, I don't know if you went back to my books. I said that University was one I didn't really like too much with Bentley Little. Even more than University, Ignored is to me one of my weaker Bentley Little books because it doesn't follow the formula. Now, maybe that's just me. I don't like the formula. Maybe some people will like this because it doesn't follow the Bentley Little formula. What I mean by the Bentley Little formula is here's this big overarching evil. People have to get together, fight this big overarching evil, and that's basically Bentley Little plus a lot of sex thrown in. This has some issues. It does have kind of an evil, but it's not an evil because Bob is part of the Ignored. He also has some hang-ups about what they're doing, but he doesn't really push it too hard. He just kind of maintains status quo. Then after that, it goes to the second part of the story where the Ignored kind of find a place where they can feel like they belong. And then there's again something else, another evil involved in that area kind of thing. And all in all, I just felt like the story just didn't meet the gravitas of what Bentley Little stories have. There wasn't a big overarching evil here. There was just it was just this concept of being ignored and what it can do to you, what you can get away with, kind of. And of course you could do some horrible things if basically you could do anything with no consequences because people will just ignore you and forget who you were. So all in all, I feel like again, The Ignored was one of my weaker Bentley Little books. I think it's easily skippable, especially if you're a fan of the format that Bentley Little does. It is easily, to me, a skippable Bentley Little book. I'm sure other people have liked it, but again, I did not find it that interesting. Um, Now on to the Ronald Malfi books. Someone mentioned to me in the comments, I believe my last video, where I talked about Ronald Malfi, that I've read 2 other books by Ronald Malfi, and I actually read 3 other books before Snow. So that was 4 Ronald Malfi books, and I forgot about his short story collection that I read. So this one, I read 2 books now. I read Bone White, and I read Ascent. Let me cover Ascent first. 6 months after he almost died in a caving accident, sculptor Tim Overlay spends his time crunching his broken body from bar to bar, crunching his broken body from bar to bar, Annapolis. Wait, crunching his body from bar to bar in downtown Annapolis. See, I can read. Uh, he has told no one that it was his dead wife Hannah who helped him survive, and that he's still seeing her. But a chance meeting with an old friend and a plane ticket to Kathmandu reawakens Tim's passion for adventure. He agrees to join an expedition to one of the last explored places on Earth, the Canyon of Souls in the Himalayas. The daunting climate will pit Tim and other climbers against icy winds, mysterious forces, and the ghost that lives within each of them. A thrilling edge-of-your-seat ride that should not be missed. You'll love thrillers that will keep you guessing. Okay. Malfi, like the great documentarians, really makes us feel as though we are there. Another fine effort from the increasing interesting writer. Now, this book is not a horror book. This is a thriller. And I like thrillers. I don't read them that often. It's kind of weird. There are certain levels of books, and they all follow this kind of line when it comes to thrillers and horror, and like I like sci-fi. Now you could get a sci-fi book that can actually be a horror book and sci-fi. You can get a thriller book that has, that leans over into the horror element, like something like Silence of the Lambs would lean over into the horror element, even though it does have its basis in kind of a thriller feel. So you have books that kind of have dividing lines. This one is definitely thriller. I don't really consider it mystery thriller, because sometimes thriller actually floats into the mystery level. It is basically thriller. You kind of figure out what's going on. I guess there is a little bit of a mystery, but you kind of figure out what's going on pretty quickly in this story. I mean, there is, again, a mystery element to it, but basically, this character Tim meets up with a friend of his, who convinces him to actually do this carnival. I keep saying, I want to say carnival. Caravan. Is it caravan or canyon? Canyon of Souls. I keep thinking Carnival of Souls, which is completely different. Caravan of Souls hike, basically, or climb. And it's interesting because a whole bunch of people come along. And of course, these people start to drop off one by one. And again, that's where the mystery part comes in. But it's interesting, and there's also the somewhat of a horror element, I guess, about him always seeing his dead wife, or his dead ex-wife, actually. And you find out slowly but surely what is Tim's kind of problem, what he believes happened to his wife, and how he blames himself. And it's really a good story as far as like character development. I really like the character development in The Ascent. And as a thriller book goes, I honestly think it is a pretty good thriller. I really have no qualms about it. I think if you like thrillers and you like Ronald Malfi, I would highly recommend it. I think The Ascent was a really well done thriller, and I'm glad I read it. I personally like horror better than thriller, but if I'm going to read a thriller, I would definitely say The Ascent is well worth the read. The next Ronald Malfi is not a thriller, it is a horror book. So let me read what this says. A landscape of frozen darkness punctuated by grim gray days, the feeling like a buzz in your teeth, the scrape of bone on bone. Paul Gallo saw the report On the news, a mass murderer leading police to his victims' graves in remote Dreadhead, Alaska. It's not even a town, more like the bad memory of a town. The same bit of wilderness where his twin brother was missing a year ago. As the bodies are exhumed, Paul travels to Alaska to get closure and put his grief to rest. But the mystery is only beginning. When Paul finds a superstition locals who talk of the devil stealing souls and a line of wood crosses to keep what's in the woods from coming out, he finds no closure because no one can explain exactly what happened to Danny. And the more he searches for answers, the more he finds himself becoming part of the mystery. This book was really, really good. I really like Bone White. I don't even remember as much about the earlier books I read, the December Park and the Narrows. I would have to look them up to see what the story was to remember them. But this one, I'm going to remember this book because this was very well done. It has a little bit, I guess, with snow because it does take place in Alaska. It takes place in a harsh environment. But in general, this book is just really, again, it's just really cool. I want to tell you what it reminds me of because then it'll kind of give the story away. But basically, Paul Gallo kind of has, goes to try to find his brother, his twin brother, which kind of like he just kind of ignores his brother, and then suddenly his brother stops writing him, and it's like, oh, gee, what happened? And then he finds out about this horrible mass death that happens in this town, the same town that his brother was in. So obviously he goes to Alaska to see if one of these people who died was his brother, and you find again more, but the mystery, how these people died, why these people died, what is Bone White. You'll find out actually what Bone White stands for, which is again creepy as heck. And that's really what this story was. This story was just creepy. From the moment he got into Alaska, interacting with the different locals there, and what happens to his brother is just, it's creepy. And honestly, like I said, this is a very well done book. I really did enjoy Bone White. I thought it was one of my favorite books that I've read out of these three books. Again, I always want to pick a favorite, and Bone White is definitely a favorite. It is the one book out of all three books, if you're going to pick one to read Bone White. It is an amazing book. It's highly recommended by me, I think. And even as you can see, the ratings is pretty high too. So a lot of other people agree with me. This is very highly recommended by me as a really cool horror story. A really cool, it does have a little mystery in it, but it is definitely a horror story by Ronald Malfi. So these are the two Ronald Malfi books I've read, and the Bentley Little book as well. If you stayed all the way to the end of this, again, thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Goodbye.